I spent the last year on a mission. I traveled over 5,000 miles from the Great Lakes to California to hunt down 30 brand new roller coaster credits. From the legendary shores of Lake Erie to some truly unexpected hidden gems, I really did see it all in 2025. But here's the reality. Out of 30 new rides, only 10 were good enough to make this list. Was the 5,000 mile trek actually worth the effort? Let's take a look at my top 10 and find out. We'll start this top 10 with Cedar Point's dive coaster, Valravn. Due to the release of Wrath of Rakshasa in my home park this year, which we will get to a little later, 2025 was the first time I rode a dive coaster. I believe the dive aspect is a little bit of a gimmick. Now maybe it works better if you have deep-seated fear of drops on roller coasters, but for someone who loves that drop, the anticipation didn't do as much for me. And there's another coaster we'll get to that does that far better. One thing I will say about the dive on Valravn is that you do get an amazing view from up there. It is a strong first drop, and I love the sweeping Intamin right after. I'm also a big fan of most inversions on dive coasters. Maybe it's due to the inherent B&M smoothness, but I particularly love the zero-G rolls that they always seem to incorporate. Coming in at number 9, we head back to California's Great America and the original RMC Raptor Railblazer. This was one of 2 prototype RMC Raptor models that opened back in 2018. The other being Wonder Woman over at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. I loved the sleek look of this coaster and its single bright orange rail. This was the coaster I was most excited to ride at GA in Santa Clara, as I had never been on a single rail coaster before. The layout and the view of the coaster from off-ride looks fabulous. It looks fast, it looks whippy, and the inversions look smooth. So how did it ride? Well, that first drop isn't big, but the wide open feeling from the single file trains made it more than impactful. And once that drop starts, the ride does not quit. The airtime on this ride feels great, and after that initial drop it moves right into a fabulous dive loop inversion. Every element on this ride feels stacked right on top of the element before. And though the drops aren't huge, the way the train flies into and out of them makes them feel far better than you expect. I would rank this quite a bit higher, but I had some serious issues that held me back. First, the operations on this single rail train with a capacity of 8 riders is horrible. Don't let a short-looking line fool you. It will take a while to get in, fast pass or not. The other major issue for me is that I found the seating position in these trains uncomfortable for me, so I wouldn't want to ride it again and again. I'll have to try another single rail in the future to see if this is better on any other model. Now back to Kings Island for my number 8 and another classic Woody, the Beast. Now I first rode this because I considered it a rite of passage as a coaster nerd. I had to ride this to see for myself. But I also knew quite well that this was an old Woody built in 1979, and therefore I had low expectations about how smooth of a ride it would be. Now I wasn't wrong about the smoothness. It is an old wooden coaster, so it has moments of roughness, but Kings Island has kept up on maintenance and retracked about 20% of the ride in the last few years, including some work from the Gravity Group. But what I wasn't prepared for is how out of control this coaster feels at times. And that's exactly what I'm looking for in a wooden roller coaster. Diving into some of the tunnels on this coaster feels like it's about to just fly off the track entirely, and I loved it. And the huge helixes at the ending are top notch for such an old coaster. Now being the educated coaster nerd that I am, I knew about the fabled night ride, and did manage to ride it in the black of night in August. Those tunnels with the train screaming through them in total darkness are something not to be missed. The rumors are true, you must ride this at night. For my number 7, we're going back to California for another great Woody, Gold Striker. In case you didn't figure it out already, I do really enjoy wooden coasters. My first major roller coaster was on the American Eagle at Six Flags Great America, and since then I've always been a fan of giant wooden coasters. Now Gold Striker is not a classic Woody, but a modern model from GCI that opened in 2013. Interestingly, they had to add extra tunnels to this ride due to noise complaints from neighbors. Seriously. Gold Striker uses GCI's fabulous Millennium Flyer trains that allow for maneuverability you don't usually get in wooden coasters, and Gold Striker takes full advantage of that with relentless back and forth turns throughout. And where the Beast was the long haul of Woody's going far out and back, Gold Striker is much more compact but with dynamic movements thanks to those trains. And also, like most modern wooden coasters, there is none of that typical roughness you might expect from any non-steel coaster. Now this is the last ride I'll list from California's Great America, and this park is likely closing in the near future. So if you have a chance, make sure you get out to Santa Clara to experience this park. It doesn't have a huge lineup, but a strong lineup, and a nice relaxing park to spend the day in. I hope to find a way out there again before it closes myself. Just shy of the top 5 at number 6 is Wrath of Rakshasa at my home park, Six Flags Great America. This is actually the first dive coaster I rode, as I went to opening day with my son and waited roughly 2.5 hours to get on it. Nothing like a brand new roller coaster. A lot of what I said about Valravn earlier does apply here, and though Valravn has a higher drop and higher top speed, I still felt the intensity of Wrath was superior. The initial 96-degree beyond vertical drop is a great start, followed by a huge Immelman loop followed by a dive loop. The real highlight of this ride is the demonic knot. It's a corkscrew right into a high G helix into an exceedingly smooth 0G roll that extends that weightless feeling for what seems like forever. It's a great quick layout with no mid-course braking and inversion after inversion after inversion. I also found it to be very smooth, as most B&M coasters are, but I have heard some people complain about a rattle or some jankiness. But I rode this coaster nearly 10 times this year and never experienced that myself. This was a great addition to an already great lineup at Six Flags Great America. Kicking off the top 5 is Top Thrill 2 at Cedar Point. I've already mentioned my love of a good launch, and well, Top Thrill 2 has 3 of them. But that great initial launch and the moment you finally go over the top hat are not my favorite moments on this coaster. It's that spike. When you come backwards after the first launch and then get launched again going backwards, and then get to the top of that spike, it feels like you sit there for an eternity. I love this in the back row, though honestly going up and over the top hat in the back row might actually be too much. The way you feel dragged through it with such force, then into the twist, wow. I could rank this higher, but in some respects it feels like half an experience for me. It's all just over too dang quick. Now we're back to Kings Island for my number 4 pick, the Giga B&M Orion. If I had to pick my favorite class of coaster, it might be B&M Hyper / Gigas. I don't need inversions on every single coaster, and there's something amazing about the smooth as glass ride, great airtime, and pure sense of speed they can give. They also feature my favorite, most comfortable for me restraint system, the clamshell lap bars. Orion represents only my second Giga, my first being Millennium Force over at Cedar Point, and so far I've loved both of them. Orion starts with that massive lift hill and then goes into its 300-foot drop that I loved in the back row. It was good in the front as well, but better in back. It then goes through some typical B&M elements, including an overbank turn and a wave turn. Orion then throws in some great airtime and speed hills that give me just what I want in a ride. Floater airtime along with a lot of speed. The ascending helix toward the end is intense, and that final overbank turn is a great finish to this one. Does it do anything I haven't seen before? No, but it does everything really, really well. At number 3, we have one of the most anticipated coasters of the year, Siren's Curse. The name is appropriate, since it was meant for not 1, but 2 other parks before landing in Ohio. So how's the ride? Well, it's number 2 for a reason. This ride is the total package. It has a fantastic name and a nice bit of theming to match it. Well, nice for a Six Flags park anyway. This Vekoma-built tilt coaster also looks really impressive, with bright red track and a compact, efficient design. The trains are very comfortable, and the restraints are pretty comfortable too, though they may have felt a little tight for my liking. The theming here didn't end in the queue either, as there's actual onboard audio, which is fantastic. It provides a creepy ambient background as you climb the lift hill, and that tilt function, although perhaps a little gimmicky, is something to experience. Slowly moving into a 90-degree drop position is incredible. But I have to say, the drop itself is thrilling, but it seems so short the way it's set up. I'm interested to see how it's different at the new Iron Rattler in Qiddiya. As soon as you drop, the audio switches to a heavy metal soundtrack that helps up the intensity. Siren's Curse has a hectic slalom-like feel the way it dips and moves back and forth. There are only 2 inversions, both barrel rolls, but they felt great. And the dive into a tunnel midway through the run is amazing, especially at night with the audio and lighting package in full effect. Siren's Curse is an amazing ride, and it makes me want to try more tilt coasters in the future. We're down to the top two, and spoiler alert, they are both at Kings Island, which is probably my favorite park I visited last year. Number 2 on my list is Mystic Timbers, the GCI wooden coaster built in 2017. You'll remember another GCI wooden coaster on my list is Gold Striker, and these definitely share some similarities. Both feature the Millennium Flyer trains that allow the quick changes of direction for these new generation Woodies. It's used on Mystic Timbers to create an airtime packed layout that features a lot of slalom-like movements back and forth. This is also very similar to how Siren's Curse rides. A lot of quick changes of direction with small drops and dips. Now, I had no idea what to expect when I rode Mystic Timbers. I had heard it was well liked, but I didn't know any details about it other than it was wood and something about the shed at the end. It starts out with a standard chain lift typical of wooden coasters, but halfway through the lift seems to speed up and then slows to a crawl when you reach the crest of the hill. Then it drops you into a banked leftward drop and never lets up the intensity until you reach the fabled shed. This ride constantly oscillates between speedy airtime hills followed by twisty quick banks to one side or the other, then airtime, then a bank, then airtime, and so on. It also throws in some intense elongated curves, and the pacing seems to never let up. I loved every second of it. And while I won't spoil the shed, I will say I think it's a fantastic way to end this ride while waiting for the loading station to clear out the train in front of you. And my favorite new to me roller coaster of 25 is, and if you kept track of what I've listed already, you should know, the B&M Hyper Diamondback. I love these B&M Hypers and Gigas with the wide open trains and those incredibly comfortable clamshell restraints. My favorite ride of all time is Raging Bull at my home park, and while these two rides have a lot of similarities, they are actually quite different. The drop on Diamondback is both longer and steeper, which definitely creates more airtime, which you already know I love. But still, the way Raging Bull drops into a tunnel makes it a little more dramatic than the open air drop on Diamondback. But after that drop, Diamondback is all about the airtime, where Bull is a little more about sustained speed and banks and turns. I rode both the front and back on Diamondback, and as is often the case, I really prefer the back. I just love the way those big airtime hills pay off from the rear as you get yanked over them. The weird thing about this ride is if you watch a POV, it actually looks a little boring. It's basically one hill after another after another. A couple twisty turns throw in, and more hills one after the other. But every one of those hills provides my absolute favorite force on roller coasters, good old-fashioned floater airtime. And it delivers that great sensation again and again and again. It's also smooth throughout, and while that water splashdown finale is a little less impactful on the ride, it's a great way to end a great coaster. I wish I had been able to ride Diamondback 10 times that day. This smooth B&M Hyper Floater airtime machine is in contention for my number 1 ride anywhere, and I look forward to riding all the B&M coasters out there, and I have so many more to ride. I can't wait. Thanks for watching. My name's Ryan, and I'll see you at the parks.